We live in a time where masculinity is shamed and men don't know what it means to be a man. As a pastor and counselor, I've spent the better part of my life equipping and training others. My goal with this show is to translate my hard-earned experience into tools and tactics to help you become stronger as a man. This is the BraveCo podcast. I'm your host, Jason Vellet. BraveCo men, welcome back to the podcast. We have Dan Staton on this week. Dan, man, you're an incredible bow hunter. And I know that because I followed you on Instagram some. I stalk you on Instagram and also watch some of your videos. And you just have such a cool approach to hunting in general. And which is part of why I want to have you on here, but you're also a family man. So we're going to get into that a little bit here, and a businessman. And so, man, I'm stoked to be on here with you. And I'd love to dig into your life a little bit today.
Thanks for having me, man. It's an honor.
Tell me a little bit about yourself, a little bit about where you grew up, and eventually we're going to dive into bow hunting real fast here.
Oh, good. Yeah. No, I'm 40. I'm married, year 13, 2 kiddos, 6 and 8. Daughter is the oldest, son is the youngest, and live in Spokane. Grew up a little bit north of here, till about elementary school in a small town called Elk, Washington, believe it or not. I'm a huge elk hunter.
No way.
Pretty cool. My dad, I was a PK. My dad was definitely a pastor out there at, like probably considered a non-denom. Did that. And then I think my dad and mom just wanted to change. So they moved into town and got like jobs and stuff and tried to raise kids the best they could. And man, it's just my background is probably strength and conditioning first and foremost. Was strength coach, personal trainer, gym manager, gym owner, just a coach. Just love people, love fitness. Still do fitness, but don't own a gym anymore. Kind of do my full-time gig, which is running a business called Elk Shape, which is basically like a lifestyle brand of directed mainly towards men and leveraging elk hunting to create the best version of yourself. So I kind of do that full time and have a team and try to live simply.
I love it. Yeah. Following you, it seems a lot like that. Just watching what you do for men, in teaching guys how to get in shape, a lot, it's inspiring because you're not just teaching guys how to get in shape. You're teaching them how to pursue their dreams, set goals, achieve those goals, have the right mindsets. And, it's awesome, man. What you're doing is really inspiring. Can we go back just a little bit? You're a pastor's kid. I grew up pretty much in the church my whole entire life, small town. I wish my town was called Elk though, man, I'm missing out.
Yeah.
I grew up in Weaverville, a little town of 3,000 up in the mountains. And, but my dad's a pastor as well. How was it for you? Your dad being a pastor?
When I was young, I don't remember a ton of it. I'm trying to think back. The positives were we lived in the church. There's a little house
Parsonage
next to the church. Well, yeah. At the end of the day, that's what it was. Church parsonage, and pretty dirt floor poor. Didn't know it. Looking back, which is super cool to say. Good job, parents, and just definitely remember like worship services. Remember my dad going up there and not caring anything to do with what he was doing. We were out playing in the back with all the kids. And I do remember a little bit of my dad just burned out on whatever you want to call it, the being diplomatic or the politics or the scene behind the scenes, where I think he just had enough. And honestly, I think he was tired of being super poor and just had to make a change. But definitely grew up in a Christian household. My mom, believe it or not, was more like Bible thumping than my dad. She prayed with us. She, to this day, she's always like preaching at me. I'm not kidding, and I love it. I love her to death. And but my dad, no, super cool dude, very laid back, chill, and we just pretty lucky to grow up in a family that put God
Yeah.
first as best they could,
Yeah.
and yeah, very fortunate.
Yeah. I like that. Was life pretty easy for you growing up? Just normal family, normal home.
Yeah, I mean, compared to most, absolutely, like
Hmm.
super spoiled. I think I've had it easy my whole life. I've had running water. I've had food on my table. Um, I've had clothes to wear. I've had parents that work their butt off for me. And as you get older, you look back and you really start to understand and appreciate the sacrifices that they have made on your behalf. And you hope to do the same for your children.
Yeah, no, it's so true. I used to be bummed out, right? Because my testimony was like super simple. And I'd be like, oh man, I haven't gone through anything really tough. I haven't stabbed any kids or broken out of juvie or and then you realize like, man, it's such a it's such a powerful story to grow up in a home where parents who love you. And because it gives you such an incredible foundation to be able to operate out of, right? And to have something to give to others. And so we have good parents to thank for that. When did you get into elk hunting or into hunting in general?
So my dad did hunt quite a bit, especially when I do remember complaining that we ate too much deer meat. Like I remember being like, deer again. I didn't know we were poor. I didn't know food stamps was a thing, and I didn't know we ate wild game like so much. And I do remember complaining about deer meat. And now I don't eat hardly anything that's not wild game. But just goes to show how ignorance is bliss. And then my
Yeah.
dad would let me go follow him around grouse hunting, like upland bird type stuff, and that graduated me up to the point where I was like, I want to deer hunt. My dad's bringing home deer every year. I want to do this. And so we did it. I got my hunter safety all dialed and passed when I was 10. And my dad got me a 30-30 to hunt with. He borrowed it from a friend. So I started deer hunting at age 11. But I'll be honest with you, I hung it up pretty fast because once junior high hit, I was doing three
Yeah.
sports and there was no time to go hunting. And I didn't pick it back up. So my dad must have done a decent job of, because when you take a kid hunting, you're like making your hunt that's hard even harder. So
Yeah.
he did a good enough job for me to have good experiences. I mean, I wasn't cold, I wasn't bored. It was awesome memories with my dad to where as soon as I graduated high school and I decided not to pursue baseball anymore, fall came around and I was like, dude, let's go deer hunting, Dad. And that deer hunt that we went on was in Washington State. It was a public land hunt. And we found elk out in the mountains when we were deer hunting. And long story short, is I went and looked up. Actually, we probably had to drive into town and pick up the game regulations. I don't think internet was super hot then, but we looked at the regs and saw that the elk season opened the following weekend for rifle. And so we were like, let's give it a shot. Went to the store, bought our tags, picked up a cassette for the kids listening. That's a tape. That's not even a CD. Put the cassette player in the truck as we drove to the mountain and listened to these guys teach you how to call elk. And all the audio was like real live hunts. So no visual, just audio. And you could hear these dinosaurs bugling, prehistoric giants. You could hear these guys pull their bow back. You could hear their heart pumping through the microphones they were wearing. And you'd
Wow.
hear the thwack of the string being dumped, the arrow hitting the elk, and them celebrating and freaking out. I don't know, man. Like that audio was burned into my soul of like, I need to experience that. Now we were rifle hunting. The elk aren't really bugling.
Yeah.
We slipped in there. I shot a bull about 5 minutes into the hunt with my rifle at 20 yards. My
Bro.
dad cow called it in, and we were elated. We were like, holy crap. And when I walked up to this beast, it's like 10 times the size of a deer, probably not literally, but it sure felt like it. And the
Yeah.
antlers were huge. And then we took it home and we butchered it and we ate that thing for almost a whole year. I signed up for bow hunting the next day. I mean, I literally was like, I'm getting a bow. I'm hunting them when they're bugling because that's all that most states allow. And
Yep.
I have been a bow hunter since then. That was 2001.
Man, I love it. We got to get that original audio, you got to get that original tape back and somehow loop it into your podcast or something. Loop it
No
into your
doubt.
daily routine. That's awesome. Yeah. The experience of being a young man and out there with your dad, right, in an unknown thing as well. Like shooting an elk's not an easy thing to do. I mean, and maybe it was back then, but I've been elk hunting a couple times. Um, it's not in most places. It isn't just like walk up, do a few cow calls, shoot an elk in the first 5 minutes, drag it back home. That's a pretty big event.
Yeah. So I got a bow the next year and then I hunted elk. My personality is all or none, always been that way. And so, I
Yeah.
mean, like I went all in and I mean, I quit jobs just so I could elk hunt all of September, like the entire month. And 5 minute elk hunt with a rifle turned into another 5 years until I finally got my first elk with a bow. And it wasn't for a lack of effort and it wasn't for a lack of time or good hunting. It was just that it's that hard and there's a lot to know.
Yeah, it's so true. For guys that aren't into hunting at all, a lot of people think that you just rock up into the woods and shoot whatever you want. And even hearing your story about the rifle, like it doesn't typically happen like that, fellas. Uh, you have to put a ton of effort, energy. There's a lot of knowledge that goes into whatever animal you're pursuing, whether it's elk or deer or birds. There's a lot that goes into it. Growing up, when I grew up in Weaverville, I used to hunt a lot just out of my back. I had, I don't know, 100,000 acres of Forest Service land behind me. But California, man, our deer season, we get the shaft big time. So there's no rut hunts. Our hunts start in August and it's literally 100 degrees. So, and I didn't really have, my dad didn't hunt. So I didn't have a dad that, taught me about the wind so it was all just self-taught. I didn't shoot my first buck till I was 16. And I hunted religiously, like losing weight. One time I went out hunting, came back, I'd lost 12 pounds, just walking, not drinking water like an idiot. But that was my experience hunting, growing up in Weaverville, just pounding through the hot buck brush, scaring the bucks off because, I don't know that I have to, I'm trying to be quiet, but the wind's at my back and I don't know that the wind, I don't even know about the wind. So just, it's a challenging thing to grow up and to start to learn. Who taught you how to shoot a bow?
The wrong person, myself. And
Yeah.
if you're thinking about getting into even archery, don't teach yourself, or handguns or
No.
rifles. Like, don't teach yourself all the bad habits. There wasn't YouTube or podcasts or I bought my bow at a pawn shop, man, and I
Wow.
just watched DVDs or VHS tapes and figured it out. But man, that was part of my deal, is unlearning the bad habits that I created throughout the years. And that was probably part of why I wasn't getting elk, man. I'd missed quite a few, and my equipment setup was wrong. And so, yeah, I definitely self-taught. I wouldn't recommend that.
Yeah, it's a tough road to hoe for sure. I was in the same boat. I don't know, 9 years old when I got my first bow. My dad always tells a story that he came outside and I had my bow and our dog was just deathly afraid of me. I guess I was shooting at my dog. Yeah, I didn't know. You know what I mean? Like, you can only shoot paper for so long as a young boy before, man. I needed a live target, and I guess I was shooting my field points at my dog. For all the listeners out there, I don't do that anymore. But it was
No
tough,
doubt.
like no one taught me about anchor points or following through anything like that. I had my first. I mean, I had a lot of bows growing up, but my first real like hunting bow was a high country. Did you ever have a high country?
So I think high countries were made in Idaho, man, like out of Lewiston. And I've definitely shot them, but I've never ran with one. But I always admired that brand because they were out of Lewiston, Idaho.
Well, unfortunately, I mean, they were all right. Mine rattled like crazy, bro.
Yes,
It was
sir.
nuts. How tell me a little bit about how long did you like how long before you knew, man, I want to I want to be in the business of teaching people how to elk hunt, helping people get in shape, like how did that evolve?
Yeah, that was a long one because you got no business teaching something you suck at, right? So,
It's true.
given the personality of fully committing my life, like elk hunting changed my life. The unsuccessful years woven into my DNA was the recipe for me getting more and more determined slash obsessed each year on,
Mm,
okay, what do I need to do to make this happen? I need to figure out how to get elk tags. So I need to research all
yeah.
the states and what to do. I need to understand elk. I got to research their behavior, their biology. I need mentors. I need to learn how to shoot this bow better. I need a coach. Got a coach.
Mm,
Um, I need to upgrade my gear. But when I knew I was hooked on elk hunting was that first year of bow hunting. My uncle took me to one of his places, and we pull up at the top of this mountain, and it's timbered, steep, nasty country. And we're on a pretty nasty Jeep road. He pulls over. It's just getting light. He busts out a bugle tube, and he projects a synthetic bugle out down this huge drainage canyon system. And in the very bottom, immediately a bull answers and screams back at us. And he's like, looked at me and was like, all right, let's go. And I remember grabbing my backpack, my gear, my stuff, and just diving off the top of this mountain. And I don't think I'd ever hiked that far for anything. And I was like, oh my gosh. And it took us almost half the morning just to kind of get close to where we heard the bull one time. And then my
wow.
uncle made another bugle and the bull answered. And it was, like I said, like this prehistoric, it's just incredible sound. And we didn't get an elk that day, but we had tons of vocal interactions and we bumped them. And I remember by the time we got back to the truck, it was dark. I was spent. Um, this was for me. I'm like, I just found the thing. And so fast forward, it probably wasn't until 2016 is when I really kind of got serious about the brand Elk Shape. I think I started it
Yeah.
in 2013 as just kind of my shtick, like I got this fitness background. I love elk hunting. And by 13, I'd put quite a few bulls on the ground. And I was like, I like the idea of elk shape, getting into elk shape, or even more importantly, staying in elk shape year round. So I created like
Yeah.
a website and a YouTube channel. And I was not, it was just for fun, man. It was just like a new digital presence for me to blog or add videos and document my journey. Um, in 2018, I had my YouTube had grown. I had started a podcast and I was interviewing other elk hunters and I was just trying to help people through the learning curve. Like that's always been like my singular focus for Elk Shape was
Mm,
just to help people not go
yep.
through a 5 year drought like I did.
Yep.
Um, and then I just had an idea of where, like, well, I own a gym. I could have guys come to the gym. We could do some fitness. We could head over to the archery range, shoot some bows. I could get a couple buddies of mine to show up, teach guys how to elk call and go through gear and talk about tactics and make a weekend of it. So I just threw it out there as like, hey, let's do an elk shape camp. Um, Sign up this Friday. I'm going to limit it to 20 guys. registration goes live at this time. And I didn't know if anyone would even come, to be honest with you, Jason. And then I remember that the second it went live is the second it sold out. I had all 20 spots sold in minutes. And I was like, okay. So
Dang.
that kind of led me down the path of like, well, then I'm going to get serious about this and do more camps. And the podcast grew, the YouTube grew to the point where I was like, I can't run this gym and do elk shape the way I want to. Something's got to give. I love fitness, but I love elk hunting more. Let's
Yeah.
try to do elk shape full time. So I sold my gym and just put everything I had into elk shape, and that's where we're at.
Bro, that's wild. It takes so much courage to really step out and and to pursue that full time. A lot of guys struggle with failure. That's one of the things I love about hunting, right? Is there's so much failure in hunting. And like you're talking about that 5-year drought with elk hunting. And I mean, all through the season, there's failure, whether you hit an animal back too far, don't recover it, miss an animal, wind switches. There's so much failure. Um, how have you learned to deal with failure?
Yeah, bow hunting is repetitive failure. And I love that cliche is you're not failing until you don't get back up. Then you
Mm,
have failed. And so if you refuse to just stay on the ground, I don't feel like you're ever failing. Um, for the listeners, if you are worried about failing, that's taken away from your focus of driving towards success.
yeah.
And that's what keeps me going is like, I've tasted that delayed gratification of working year round, year after year, and walking up on that elk that I set out to kill 5 years ago. And you can't bottle that up, but that feeling, albeit short, is enough juice to have me right back on the warpath for the next year. And the cool thing about archery elk hunting is that every year the slate is wiped clean
Mm,
and you can't rest on any prior success. And
it's
to
true.
me, I just love that.
Yeah, it's so true. Yeah, I always say like the woods are the great equalizer. The mountain doesn't care who you are. I mean, it treats every man the same, and being able to go out there and really test yourself. There's something that's really incredible, even healing, and so important about testing yourself as an individual, as a man, and being able to um, see where you're strong, where you're weak, what you need to improve on is vital. I see a lot of guys that look at someone like you and go, "Oh man, what a lucky guy." You know, what a lucky guy. He gets to chase elk, hunt elk, teach people how to do that. And you've put so much time, effort, and energy into focusing on one thing. I guess I'd love for you to address the guys that are going, man, I wish I could do that. Lucky you, not even in a bad way, lucky you, right? Not even like in the condescending way, just like the everyday guy that's going like, man, I wish I could do something that I love. I'm stuck at this, whatever, grocery store, IT job. Like talk to that guy a little bit.
Yeah, certainly. Well, I'm never going to disagree, even if somebody's coming at me negatively with a must be nice or lucky you or whatever. I couldn't agree more. Who am I to be so fortunate to chase my passion and make a job out of it?
Mm,
How that formula happened was that if you boil it down, and I say this on my podcast, is that I am literally have zero interest in money. I have now that doesn't mean I don't have bills to pay,
yeah.
but it means like I'm not worried about climbing a corporate ladder. I'm not worried about clout. I'm not worried about I just want to elk hunt. And that's my North Star besides faith and families. I just want to go elk hunting, man. And
Yeah.
so if that means I don't get paid very much, but my bills are covered, I'm a happy guy. Live simply. I said it at the beginning of this cast,
Mm,
and I abide by that. But I'm not going to go punch a clock and be miserable. I'm not going to go help someone else's dream out, even if it pays well. Because if you work for someone else and you're not happy, that's on you.
yep.
I'm willing to take risks. I'm willing to bet on myself, and I'm willing to succeed or fail and to pick myself back up and try something else. And I don't know how long I'll do elk shape, Jason. Like I could have an expiration date. I don't know what God's got planned for me, but I am going
Yeah.
to give it my all at whatever I do. And I can tell you that it doesn't, there's not like money, opportunity, all that kind of stuff just does not drive me. It's time chasing. It's having the autonomy in my schedule to decide when I want to do things. I love working at home. My kids come down in this office when I'm podcasting. They interrupt. They interrupt videos and content. I'm a content creator, and I love it, man. I'm here all the time. I'm not like getting up and commuting for an hour and hating my job and then commuting for an hour and then looking forward only to 2 days a week, the
Yeah.
weekends. Like I actually
Yeah.
hate weekends. That's when everyone else has time off. That's when I
Yeah.
like to work the most. I like
Yeah.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday for playing and stuff. So, I mean, life is short, and I
Yeah.
don't think you have anyone else to blame but yourself. So if you're truly passionate about something, go for it. And that doesn't mean go quit your job right now.
Yeah.
I didn't quit the gym. I served two masters. I ran a gym for 10 hours a day, came home, hung out with the family. When they went to bed, I stayed up late editing podcasts and YouTube
Yeah.
videos and working on my craft, and until the scales tipped in my favor, where I was like, okay, this is a calculated risk. Let's do Elk Shape full time. I have a 2-year window. I'm going to give it everything I got. And at the end of these 2 years, we're going to check in. And if I'm not where I wanted to be, I'll go drive a UPS truck. I don't, you know what I mean? As long as I
Yep.
get enough vacation to hunt in September. So,
Yep.
yeah, man, that's kind of all I have to really say about it. Is it is nice. I am lucky, and I recognize that.
Yeah. I love it. I love your perspective, and it's a perspective that you have to have if you're going to live the life that you really want, right? Like Jordan Peterson says, you have to pick your suffering. You're going to suffer under the weight and the pressure of whatever, working for the man, doing something that you don't love to do, or you're going to suffer under something that you chose, going, yeah, I'm going to wake up early. I'm going to stay up late. I'm going to grind. I'm going to take a risk. But at the end of the day, as long as for me, as long as there's going to be suffering involved, I want to be the owner of it. I want to be able to go, this is mine. I'm doing this. I'm owning this. But it is a challenge. And I love the process that you went through of, okay, following a passion, then and working hard at your other job to make some time to build some leeway. And then when that jobs, when Elk Shape started demanding a little bit more and you saw that there was some promise, slowly moving into that, that's smart. It's wise.
I hope so. I love what I do. Um, pinch myself every day. I wake up really early. Uh, I don't shoot my bow and work out all day. Believe it or not, those are like the two things I look forward to doing every day, and I
Yeah.
get to them at some point. But I mean, it's a grind, just like you, man. It's emails, it's scheduling. I have sponsors. They have strings attached. They need things. They're needy. I signed up for that. That's my burden to bear. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That's my suffering, is to do that. I get criticized by other hunters for, you know, hunting can be a very egocentric
Yeah.
thing, and antler size or number of animals can really be a metric of your clout. And I don't get wrapped up in any of that, man. Like,
Yeah.
this is a
I love it.
lifestyle for me, where I think perfect protein source that God created for us is hunting. It's in our DNA, and I love the pursuit, and I love the requirement of me to work hard year round to do it proper. And I can't, I mean, I think you can feel my energy and my passion for it. It's
I love
real,
it.
because it makes me tick, man. It makes me feel so alive. And I got to be honest, the elk don't live in sucky places. They live in incredible landscapes, places I would never go
Yeah.
for no reason other than to elk hunt. So
Yeah.
I am very lucky to do that.
How does hunting season go for you and your wife? How does that work? Is she pretty like, hey man, take as much time as you want, go forever? Or is she like, hey, let's plan it out. Let's map it all out.
So yeah, it's an evolution, and I'm not going to come on your podcast today and tell everybody that I've figured it out, cracked the code.
I got a bunch
I
of guys
think elk hunting,
that are willing to pay for that. If you can crack that code where the wife says, please go hunting, I'm so happy.
I'll tell you what is, there's a couple things, and I want to answer this in a way that it actually is like takeaways for listeners that are interested in. And it's a series of mistakes. Like, hunting is very selfish, to whether you want to admit or not. Like, you're selfishly leaving your responsibilities and putting a lot on your wife or your spouse's shoulders so that you can go do this thing that's a hobby. It's not like, we're not going to starve if I don't kill an elk. All right. I understand that, but it is selfish. And I have a good argument for it, and it might be considered a justification, and I'll get to that. But like, the first thing I learned was like, over communicate what I'm thinking. My wife will never truly understand what I'm thinking, even though I tell her year after year the same stuff. Like, it baffles me that she's surprised that I want to go elk hunt as much as possible. and that's it. So as soon as I get an elk tag, because the draw systems are in the spring, you figure out where you're going to be elk hunting. You don't hold that information in. And I used to do that. I used to be like, all right, goodbye. I'm going to Idaho and Wyoming. I'll see you in 3 weeks. Like, that's like, you can't do that. So
no,
I know that I'm going to have we're going to be in probably a tough conversation, but I'm going to get that out of the way and go right upstairs and write it on the calendar and say, I have this tag. I want to give this hunt at least 10 days. And then when I draw the next one, it's even harder to tell her, hey, I have another tag. I'm going to do this hunt there.
Yeah.
And then she's, so we just over communicate. We go right to the fire and get it out of the way. Now, when I withdraw, and this is the analogy I use, I'm withdrawing from our account, not financially, but our love account, our relationship account. I am withdrawing significant amounts in the fall. If I don't deposit the rest of the time of the year, there's going to be nothing and I'm going to over withdraw, and we're going to have conflict. So I'm a huge believer in putting family first, and to be interested in her version of elk hunting, which I happen to know her version of elk hunting is home improvement, home and garden TV. My wife is like Joanna Gaines. She literally replaced the faucet in our kitchen yesterday because it wasn't as cool as, and so she's under the sink. And so I support her projects. I listen intently on what design ideas she had. I understand shiplap like nobody else, man. And I used to not really care about her stuff, like, quite honestly. And so get interested in your spouse's whatever their September or their elk hunting thing is, and communicate your plans way in advance. And then do the little things like send the flowers ahead of time, or surprise her with a date night, massage, whatever, while you're gone. Take care of the kids, like handle the nannies, like pull your weight. And you will have a wife. And then this is where I was going to end with, was like, and Jason, this is like no truth. Like, this is like the most important thing I want to convey. There's a version of me that comes out of September that is 10x better than the version that went into it. Elk hunting makes me whole. I get time. Like, elk hunting's not chasing bugles all day. It's like 16 minutes of that, and a lot of downtime, and a lot of time to stop and reflect and evaluate the life that you've been leading and where you're falling short in your faith, in your marriage, as a father, career. So clarity, like Alicia, my wife, is going to get the best Dan Staton out of elk hunting season. I'm going to be a little more patient. I'm going to be a little more humble. I'm going to listen a little bit better. And because of that, there is encouragement from her to do this, knowing that I need this, my soul needs this, and that's the most important thing to me.
Bro, I love it. So I've been a counselor for, I don't know, 20 years. And what the way that you're talking about the negotiation, uh, in pressing into the conflict and making sure that you're investing into the bank account, the emotional, you know, that love account that you get to withdraw from is so smart. And then being proactive right ahead of time and um, setting yourself up and her up for success while you're gone. All those things, like I don't even think it's as much for for our spouses that we're gone. I think that they don't feel cared for. I mean, when we really get down to the bottom of it, like he's going, for a lot of people, he's going and chasing another mistress. He would rather be out there. It becomes this competitive thing instead of her being able to genuinely just enjoy that you have something that brings you life, right? That brings that side of manhood, masculinity, that pull, that connection to yourself and to God and the outdoors. I think that so many women feel in competition to their husband's passions because just in life in general, right? We haven't learned how to do conflict in a healthy way. We haven't learned how to sew into that bank account. We haven't learned how to set them up for success and do the things, 350 days a year that gets us those extra, whatever, 2 days, 10 days, 15 days, that where she goes, man, you're the best man I know. Like, if this brings joy to you, go get after it. And I have definitely fallen short in this area. A part of my story is I dealt with anxiety for a really long time, really, really long time. Had a nervous breakdown at 29 and worked through that. But part of how I learned to medicate through my nervous breakdown was in hunting and fishing. And I am a lot the same like you. I go overboard. So I don't just get into fly fishing. I build fly rods, and I don't just build fly rods. I tie flies. Oh, and I tie flies professionally. And you know what I mean? Like, it's just, so I was fly fishing 4 days a week, and which is tough, man. I have 5 kids. And, and so, 3 to 4 days a week. My kids were a little bit older. And so I could get away with it some, but it was unhealthy. And I finally had to come to a place where I realized, like, oh my gosh, it's not actually even the fishing that I love. It's the anxiety that I hate. And, and although I like fishing and I'm pretty passionate about it, and I love bow hunting, I do Alaska, I do all over the place. I love it. But I have to learn how to manage it in a way that doesn't manage my life. And that for me was a massive challenge. How do we manage these passions that we have? Because I like the obsession thing. I'm good. I don't know anybody that's not obsessed that is great at what they do. But so often our obsessions become mistresses that our families sacrifice for. And maybe you could just explain a little bit. You did a good job about talking about with your wife. How do you manage that with hunting and stuff, making sure that, man, this isn't just taking over my life?
Yeah, like I think talking to a pastor on a podcast that hopefully people, can appreciate me being really straightforward. I don't really
I
beat
love it.
around the bush. I'm very transparent. So false idols is what comes to mind all the time because I'm not supposed to be wrapped up in this world. This world is not, this thing is just a blink of the eye, right? Like a grain of sand. And so I always want to remind myself that I am created by a God who also created elk hunting, right? But I'm not I'm not called to worship elk hunting or the thought of it. I can do it, but I got to check myself and make sure, like,
Yeah.
you're not out here chasing bugles, and you can't even like help your neighbor, love your neighbor as you love yourself. And
Yeah.
so false idols always comes up as like a accountability piece to, like, because we all serve false idols. We all get caught up in things that aren't, they're just distractions. And it could almost be argued like by the enemy, it's almost his design that these are distracting, or we let ourselves get distracted or obsessed. And so um, I would say this: getting into the word every day while the coffee's brewing is about the only chance I have for a dose of reality, like
Mm.
clarity, in a world that wants to compete for your time. I could scroll Instagram while the
Yeah.
coffee brews. I could get sucked into that vortex of what are they doing? Why do they have a better life than me? I need to chase money, or all that kind of stuff. So I just feel super blessed to have like some ground underneath me when it comes to this life is not the only thing, and I understand that. And I get to serve a God who's created the heavens and earth, and who's created all these things and has put me in these places. And so if anything, I treat it as like, I wouldn't say a ministry because I would grade myself at C minus, but I also would say that don't be ashamed to tell people on a podcast like mine, where it's dedicated to elk hunters who didn't tune in to hear about me talk about my faith.
Yeah.
But if I don't interject some sort of faith in there, then it's pretty clear in the word. Like, if you don't proclaim your faith, if you don't, like, if you're ashamed, he's going to be ashamed of you. And I don't
Mm.
ever want God to be ashamed of me. And that's on my heart all the time. And
Mm.
so to bring it back to your original question, is like, you got to watch yourself, like, for sure. Like, don't get it twisted. I got to check myself. I got that kind of personality where I could serve this false idol of
Yeah.
elk hunting and treat it as almost my religion. And that is definitely something that I don't want to be caught up in. So fortunately, we have things working, like we have fellowship, we have men in our life where we can hold each other accountable. We have scripture,
Yeah.
um, we have quiet time. And I'm speaking from a guy who struggles with all this. I want to make sure that's clear. Like, I don't have this
I
figured
love
out.
it.
I'm just telling you, like, some of the stuff that goes through my heart, things that are on
Yeah.
my radar. And the struggle's real.
Dan, you're such a great man, and I think that that's the draw, that's the appeal, right? Like, and you can feel that. It just comes through in the videos you make, in your Instagram, and I love it. I think our safety is in our vulnerability. It's in the honesty. It's in it's in allowing the ego to be exposed. That really, to me, that's always been the safe spot. I tell people all the time, like, I don't have any secrets. I literally don't. I don't have anything that my family and my close friends don't know about. And that has done, being able to walk around with a healthy whole heart has done more for me than, but I fight for that, right? Like, I, I fight to make sure that I can go to bed at night, lay my head down, turn the lights off, and be thankful that I'm in my body, and not wish that I was somebody else. And that's a journey. And I see that in you. So man, I just honor you for that. Um,
Thank you, man.
yeah, absolutely. Um, before we end, cause we don't have forever, I know you're a busy man. Um, I'd love to just, will you fill me in on what's been your favorite hunt? What's like the most memorable time that you've had out in the mountains? Could be chasing elk or whatever. I'd love to hear that story.
Oh man, they're all memorable, and every elk I've killed, there's a lot of them. I could tell you every little single detail about that.
Wow.
But it's because it's just all part of the deal. But I think the the harder the hunt, usually the more memorable. I got an elk tag in 2011 in a pretty hard to draw very limited tag area. Um, it's it's managed for older age class elk, hence they just don't give that many tags. And I knew it was special, but it is 100% wilderness. And man, I mean, it's a long story. So the Cliff Notes version is scouted my butt off. That means I went in ahead of time, learned the lay of the land. It's not close to my house, so sacrificed a lot. Even took my wife. We backpacked in there. When it came time to season, one of my buddies has horses. We did like the classic Cabela's magazine cover, wall tent, horses, wilderness. And then a lightning storm came in and we had a wildfire with like 100 yards from our camp. We had to pack everything up. The elk hunting was just starting to get good. The whole half of the unit was burning. So we had to hunt the other half that I actually didn't scout at all.
No
And
way.
yeah, man. And then it just drug on. Like everything that could go wrong did go wrong. Like the horses got colic. All the horses had to leave. But we stayed once we moved camps. And so now we're hunting in horse country on foot. So everything's just hard. Water, wasn't a lot of water in the unit. Finally killed a bull on like day, man, like 12 of a 10-day hunt. Like we were in extra innings. And my dad was with me. We got it all the way out. And I mean, it is still to this day the longest pack outs, like plural, because it took multiple trips. It was a big bull. My dad lost like 16 or 17 pounds, like you were just talking about. Like he lost 16 or 17 pounds. I can't remember what, but he was under 200 pounds, which is hard to believe for his size of a man
Yeah.
to break 200. I weighed nothing. And that hunt was so hard and so rewarding. And that was in Washington State. And
Wow.
it was just such a cool hunt to have it all come together. And it was all about perseverance. It was all about taking it on the chin and like keep going, keep pushing. Taught me a lot about myself and made me fall even more in love with elk hunting.
Man, I love that. It's so cool. One of the things that men are really struggling in is confidence, right? And guys going like, man, how I don't feel like a confident man in, but the only way to actually really build confidence is to do it, right? Is to earn it. You have to earn confidence. And hunts like that, times like that where you get in late innings, you have to change your plan. You got to adapt. You got to do these crazy pack outs. You have to remember when you have a ton of weight on your back, why you even wanted to do it. You know, when you're in pain, you know, all those things like, why did I drag my dad down here? But when you're done with that, the reward of perseverance is confidence. It's knowing that you can do it. It's you just went to the next level in your capacity, right? It's an increased capacity. And not to make everything about that kind of stuff, but it really is true. That's what happens on those kinds of hunts. I love it, man. It's rare that we say, oh, my favorite hunt was the one I went out there. The weather was perfect. I shot the animal and, packed it out in 10 minutes and I was done. Bro, so rare. It's the
Never going
ones
to
where,
happen.
no, it's the ones when we're out there and we're like, why are we, what is happening? How did this happen? That we look back and go like, ooh, I don't know that I want to do that again, but I wouldn't take it away. That was my favorite.
Yeah, I don't even remember the pain involved in the pack outs.
Wow.
I mean, I know it was there because I remember struggling and hating life, but looking back, it's like you said, it's like you have a short memory. Like a day or two later, you're like, oh my gosh, that was so epic. That was the coolest hunt ever. Meanwhile, you forget all the turmoil of like, oh, we got to move camps. Like we're in here 12 miles. We got to drive all the way around this unit. That's
Oh,
80 miles. And now our horses are sick and now we're packing. And dude, I mean, you forget all that and you look at like the whole story itself and you're like, man, that made me better. And I have confidence. I earned that. And nothing can take that away. So I totally agree.
bro, there's so much disappointment day 11 of that hunt. The
Mm,
day before you shoot that,
yeah.
there's so much frustration. I mean, there just has to be. Uh, yeah. I went to Alaska. My friend has a bush plane, and just a cool dude, really really cool dude. And went up there and we were hunting for grizzly bears and moose. And I'd shot a grizzly bear with my bow um, on day 3, I think, which was mind blowing. It was awesome, best experience of my life. And then we started chase moose, and we had this moose come in. Well, we spotted this moose from like 2 miles away, and so we just took our time getting close because we had scared it off like the day before or something. It had winded us, or I don't know, didn't like how we were raking, or we sounded like too hot of a cow, or who knows, for whatever reason. So we snuck in there on this moose and got like 100 yards away, and he put up like this fake moose decoy. We call her Sally. Just popped it out, and I snuck into these willows, probably like 90 yards in between him and the moose. He starts calling, and here comes this big old moose, dude. It is like, it's got 2 cows. It's pissed off, coming down, getting ready to fight, raking stuff. And I just needed to step out. It's like 74 yards away, and I need it just to clear the brush. And then I'm going to shoot it with my bow. Like, I'm not going to even wait for it to get closer. And it caught my wind and turned around, took off running. So I dropped my bow. I'm like, no way. I don't even care. I've already shot a grizzly bear with my bow. Like, I did more than I thought I'd do. I dropped my bow, grabbed this 338, ran around, shot this moose, right? Which was awesome. I was super stoked. And I walked up to the moose. Oh my freaking gosh, bro. Have you walked up on a moose before?
Yeah, it's insane. But not an Alaska
Insane.
moose, which is a whole nother level.
Bro, I walk up on this moose and I'm like, his name's Pat. I'm like, Pat, are you kidding me? It took 4 shots with a 338 to drop it. And they're just so tough, bro. So I'm like, wow. So we we're trying to quarter it as quickly as possible because of the bears, and it's an uneasy feeling being in a brush patch, a big brush patch, for me at least, maybe not for you, in the middle of Alaska, and you're cutting on this carcass is not a fun
Yeah,
feeling. And
no
so
bueno.
he put the other thing is, my friend Pat, before I even went after the moose, he was like, bro, that thing's like a mile and a half away. I'm like, what does it even matter? Let's just do it. And he was like, man, you don't even understand. Like, I would normally, he said, if it wasn't you, if this was a client, I wouldn't do this. I would call day after day until that thing either decided to come closer or another one came to this river bottom. And I'm like, oh, come on, Pat, we can do this. So anyways, when he put the back quarter, hind quarter in my pack with, the first load out, I had my bow and all the rest of my stuff. Bro, I couldn't even stand up on my own.
Yep.
He had to get behind me and like pick me up. And we hiked that first pack out in the dark. It was one of the most miserable things I've ever done in my life. Broke the straps on my pack. It was crazy, bro. But I mean, I'm smiling, right? It was so phenomenal. We did 8 or 9 loads to get that moose out, and it was awesome. I was so broke off when we were done.
That
But
is so sick, man.
it's those experiences, right? That you're just like, the day of, I'm like, oh, what did I do? The day after, I'm like, when can I do this again?
Exactly. Yep.
How
It's
do
a
I get
short
back in?
memory.
It's a short
Yeah.
memory. Well, listen, man, I just love what you're doing. I love that you're pursuing your passions, that you're just going after it. For any of my guys that are on here, you're just getting into hunting or you're a pro. Like, Dan has some of the best tips, tools, training programs in the industry on elk hunting, getting into shape, pursuing your passions. Dan, where can they find you? What's the best place for them to find you?
Whatever your platform is, Elk Shape, and check it out. See if it's for you. And Yeah, man, I just want to thank you for having me on. I'm enjoyed talking. I mean, that last story is so cool. I mean, a grizzly and a moose in one trip. Nobody does that, folks. Like that's unreal. And then to grizzly with a bow, like an interior grizz, like that's next level. And then the sweet pack out. And yeah, man, I hope to meet you in real life because I think we'd get along just great. So appreciate you having me
Likewise.
on.
Likewise. Dan, thanks so much for coming on, and have an incredible week. Guys, stay brave. We'll see you next week. Hey guys, thanks so much for listening to the BraveCo podcast. If you like this podcast, would you please rate it, review it, leave us a great comment. And if you like this episode in particular, share it with your friends and family. That helps us to spread the word. Guys, stay brave. We'll see you next week.